Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the official Vox podcast. You know the drill. I'm your host, Sahel Dinat, Senior Content Writer at Vox, and we're excited to welcome you to week 2 of Cybersecurity Month. Last month, I had the unforgettable Richard Frost talking to me about cybersecurity, but this week I have a guest who is held in just as high esteem and who we're just as excited to talk to, Mr. Craig Freer. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to let him do a bit. Hi, Craig. How are you doing? And thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Sahel. Good to be here.
Happy to have you here, Craig. We haven't actually had a podcast before. I know you and I have worked together a bit. Have you been avoiding me, or has it just been an unfortunate coincidence?
I think it's an unfortunate coincidence, or you just haven't invited me.
I didn't know if you'd accept or not, but luckily I managed to get to the corner with Cybersecurity Month. But now that we have you here, I'm sure you're going to entertain our viewers, and most importantly, you're going to make me sound like I know a little bit about QWERTI, which is always a plus. Craig, before we get too much into it, let's talk a bit about you. Can you tell us a bit about your role, your background, your areas of expertise, and what exactly you do with Fox?
Sure. So, I currently head up QWERTI. QWERTI is an exciting initiative right now coming out of the Vox Group, and essentially what we've done is we've consolidated all of the managed services capabilities within inside of Vox, and we're splitting it out into a separate entity called QWERTI. Myself personally, I have well in excess of 20 years in the ICT space. In multiple roles, from product to sales to strategy, general management, and MD roles. And I've got 15 years with the Vox Group itself as well. So QWERTI is my current project, and it's something we're quite excited to take to market as an independent entity.
So, Craig, you have over 20 years experience. I'm only 30 years old. So based on what I can hear, you've been in the game since I was probably in primary school.
I can still think back to prior email where the only correspondence internally was to send an internal memo and put it into the internal post.
Yes, so it's safe to say things have come a long way. Especially when you started your career, would you ever have envisioned a world where we work remotely, let alone what COVID's done to our working space?
No, I don't think anyone could have anticipated it. I still think back to when we went into lockdown, and myself and my daughter share the same birthday in April. And me having a little bit of a laugh with them to say, well, both of you aren't getting a party because you're in a 2 weeks lockdown. Remember, 2 weeks to stop the spread. And 2 years later, life just wasn't the same, I guess. Eh?
Yeah, I know. It feels like a weird dream. It's a funny story. I got married 2 days before lockdown, and then me and my wife, having never lived together, got stuck with each other in the house for months. So it was a case of survive or die, but thankfully we pushed through it. But anyway,
it's changed the world. There's no doubt about it. It's changed the way we operate. It's brought to the fore technologies that I think wouldn't have reached mass adoption without it. But I also think that we're slowly moving back towards a lot more normal. I don't think we'll ever be 100% in office, but I certainly. What we're seeing is a lot more people returning to the office and looking for that working togetherness that you get from sitting around a table, as opposed to being on a Teams or a Zoom call, for example. So I think we're moving back towards the old way of doing things. Certainly from what I'm seeing.
To some extent, I think.
Yes,
I don't know if I actually want to. I'm quite comfortable working from home with my pajamas on my morning meeting. But okay, I suppose. Tell me, Craig, speaking of COVID and the way the working world has changed, how much of an impact do you think this has had on QWERTI as a product? And has it played a role in you guys getting this off the ground?
No, but it's shaped the way, it's certainly shaped the way we think, which is very differently. You know, in a pre-COVID type of world, you had a group of employees, and let's say it's a 50-user company, and they sit behind a firewall which sits on a network, which we can monitor, and we know if it's stable or not. And typically, it's a lot easier to support. All of a sudden, you've taken people out and you've put them into their home environments, and we've had to review in totality how we support these particular users, because we for an extended period of time, we didn't know what connectivity they had. We had one particular customer we were busy with them the other day, in fact, and so many of the staff had such poor connectivity at home. It's just physically impossible for them to do a proper day's work. It just really wasn't. It really wasn't there. So we've had to sort of embed that type of thinking into the way we monitor. And certainly, the days of also when people being at home and they've got a problem with a printer, for example, previously it's just a lot easier to support. It's normally somebody's on site, and if not, they're a half an hour drive away. And now these type of things really impact on people's ability to actually get the job done. So we've shifted very much to what was previously would have called sort of desktop support is now actually for us end user support, and we know that we've got to deliver a lot more than just your typical I have a problem with my IT or my printer or my hardware is a bit slow, those type of things. We've really had to consider so many more aspects.
Yeah, that actually brings me to my next question. I feel like at surface level, things such as printer repairs or desktop support would be a very, very oversimplified term for what exactly QWERTI does. Could you maybe expand on the scope of what QWERTI does, give us a brief understanding of your services and how you add value to your lives? Because based on my knowledge, I feel like fixing printers is such an oversimplification of what you guys exactly do.
Absolutely. So I think we have 5 pillars to our business, and maybe I'll talk to 3 now. And the starting point right now is what we call assessments. And we started out on this assessment journey around about the time of COVID, and we were expanding it radically. But in essence, one of the key pillars for any business is to manage risk. Okay. And risk takes on so many forms: security breaches, skills loss, budget overrun, excessive downtime, which can lead to reputational damage. But to mitigate risk, you need to identify risk. Okay, and in a complex technical environment, that's not necessarily always that simple. So we went out to market, and we had been going out to market for a period of time. And we said we wanted to build out a portfolio of absolutely reliable products that allow us to benchmark where we are with a customer when we start an engagement, so that we can get a 360-degree view into the IT estate. So the starting point of an engagement that we do is our assessment process. And traditionally, when we onboard a Vox customer, it's done free of charge. An engagement of this, I guess, in normal rands and cents terms would probably be in the region of 15 to about 30K. And we look at a whole set of modules, and we can look at them in its totality, or we could just look at it as a single module. But we do everything from looking at the network and user risk. We analyze the current firewall and any risks that may have in a configuration. We do a health check on cybersecurity. We do an assessment on cloud readiness and the ability to be able to migrate to the cloud. We look at all the Microsoft applications, OneDrive, SQL, 365, and we really benchmark security risk in that particular space. We look at Azure, for example, and we benchmark whether you should be paying less. It's become quite a popular product for us, Azure Cost Management. And then lastly, we look at the hardware and software that users are working on. And that's funny enough, is one of the latest in the stack that we've done. And the reason for that is just because of this work from home, it's so critical that people have the right spec of laptop that's going to allow you to work on Teams and to work on Zoom and But we look at their home connectivity as well, and we benchmark whether this person can actually work from home or not. So that's where our process begins. Okay. And at this particular point, what we then do is we would start engaging with the customer, and we would draw out a risk register on everything we would find. And we would then sit down with the customer and we'd say, what is acceptable risk, and what are we going to mitigate, and what are we going to accept as a lead for now, and what are we going to put into short-term, medium-term, long-term type planning. And we start to roll out managed services. Okay. And for us, we have a whole suite of modular managed services. And the reason we do that is some customers may have desktop support in the office. They don't need to outsource that component, but they lack the necessary file network skills or firewall skills or 365 skills, etc. And they want to take on that particular component. So we built them out as modules, but typically the majority of customers will actually just want a complete outsource with us. So in essence, we outsource everything from network to firewall to Wi-Fi to firewall I mentioned, to the end user, to all of the cloud, to on-site server, right up to the application layer. And then we do things like third-party management. So, for example, we're not a PBX vendor, but we will manage the SLA performance of a third-party vendor, and we'll make sure they're performing in line with SLAs, and we'll do the same with access, and we'll do the same with connectivity, etc. And in order to do this, what we do is we deploy a whole set of tools that allow us to do monitoring end-to-end on a particular customer's environment. And the reason we do this, and I always use this analogy, but a user picks up the phone and he logs a ticket and he says, my internet is slow. And typically, you'll start the troubleshooting process and you'll have a look, is your fiber up? Yes. Okay. Is the connectivity up? Yes. Is the firewall up? Yes. Is there a problem on one of the switches? Is it a Wi-Fi issue? Is it a hardware performance? And what we like to do is just give our engineers access to all of this data in a literally single pane of glass.
Yes.
And what that then does is it means that they can analyze right down to where the actual problem is happening. And Friday, we had a great example where a customer that logged a ticket, they had a problem with their connectivity. It actually wasn't a managed services customer, but it got escalated to us for a little bit of help. And we deployed some tools on the environment, and the team, well, they thought at the time that it actually wasn't a connectivity, it was a firewall. But the guys quickly diagnosed that the problem actually sat within their network environment. And so, we were able to dispatch an engineer to fix it at source. So, that's typically what we do in order to try and bring restore times down from hours and hours where you're having to troubleshoot across all devices into a single area. And that's our managed services capabilities. And we have a monitoring desk. We have a first line desk which deals primarily with end user tickets. And then we have an advanced desk where the heavy hitting skills sit. These are the guys that are firewall certified, security certified, they're Microsoft certified, et cetera, and they would deal with the particularly highly challenging technical type skills. And then the third component that we have is our advisory team, and our advisory team act as an outsourced CIO. And we know in the market today, it's the ability to afford a CIO is beyond reach for the majority of customers. Certainly anything sort of maybe 500 seats and below, it's not feasible to go and employ somebody potentially at a six-figure salary. So what we do is we have a team of IT advisors, and again, they're given access to all of this data that sits inside of the company's environment. And part and parcel of their job is to plan IT strategy in accordance with the business strategy and align the two. The other thing they also do is they actually help in marking our homework in the managed services side. And they're there to make sure that we're actually delivering on what we've committed to from an SLA perspective. And if we're not, is to work with the team to just remediate some of these issues and just make sure that we align properly in terms of what's been committed. Mm. And essentially, that's what we do. We allow companies to outsource IT. We've got customers as small as 10 users, and then we've dealt with customers in excess of 1,000 users. So we're able to span that divide, and we like to think we bring a level of expertise and systems and tools to the mid to large type market without the associated price points that you typically would place some of the larger vendors in the market.
Interesting. I mean, like I said, it's hard to fully encompass exactly what a wide spectrum you guys do, but I think you've summarized it in quite a nice, concise way. My next question, though, Craig, for anyone listening, is who would benefit most from this? Is it just a B2C product, or can home users benefit from it, or would it be a mix of both?
So we have a consumer product that we took to market, but our primary market is business, and we've done a fair amount of research into the marketplace, and really companies looking to outsource generally do it for one of the 5 reasons. So they just cannot access scarce skills, and so they turn to a third party who can deliver it. And this is becoming more and more prevalent in the market, particularly around security. The second thing is they want to reduce security risks. The reality for mid-sized companies today is, in all probability, you need cyber insurance. But the reality is, if you get to get a ransomware attack today in the marketplace, it could break a business. A small business could financially cripple it. The third area is traditionally they're looking to improve IT performance, and it's not a core focus for them. The fourth area is they're looking to simplify IT management, just make it a little bit easier. And then, of course, the fifth in today's economic climate is that companies are looking to reduce costs. And we see a lot of that at the moment, where companies are saying, I had an IT manager, I had 2 people working, they left, this is what the salary range was, can you try and bring it down 20-30%? And our experience right now is that where we go into a particular customer and we outsource the environment, typically we're able to bring costs down anything from 30% as high as 50% that we've seen in certain instances.
Yeah, I mean, based on inflation, based on economic cost, any cost saving is a positive, I think, in terms of a business. But lastly, Craig, so say I'm listening and I've heard everything you said and I'm interested and I'm ready to sign up. How do I get the ball rolling? Can you talk me through the process, and where do I get started, and how does it go? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively easy. Reach out to Vox, and that can be done online or picking up a telephone. If you're an existing Vox customer, then chances are you've already been exposed to our IT assessments, or you've had the offer put on the table. So if you haven't accepted it, please do. I can assure you it is a very, very valuable engagement. And even if it doesn't lead to anything, it's certainly a good benchmark to understand exactly where you are from an IT best practice perspective. And new customers, it's literally just reach out to us online or via phone, speak to one of our sales teams, and they will facilitate everything for you in the back end. It's a non-invasive process that we go through. We don't come in and install some software and probes all of your environment. Typically, we would install some software, and within 24 hours, we've collected enough data to start making some informed decisions. So, like I said, it is relatively pain-free. We do a lot of it. We've got a dedicated team now that focuses only on assessments. And these guys are well trained, well versed in what to look for. And like I said, we do gather a lot of information to make informed decisions.
I mean, it sounds perfect to me. It's basically a win-win situation. And of course, the assessments are free from my understanding. And just a matter of touch. Before we wrap up, Craig, any last words from you? Anything you want to leave us on? Any hints or advice for Cybersecurity Month, or any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, just from the Cybersecurity Month, is I think to every business out there, don't for any second believe that you're infallible, and don't for any second believe that you have enough in place to head off an attack. And any business right now, you need to consider the systems that you put in place. You need to consider the audits on those systems on a regular basis to make sure, because security policies change over time. So you need to look at that. You need to look at what you're checking for security. You can have the best firewall in place and the best email security in place, but you could be very weak on, for example, your Microsoft 365 tenant, and that's how they get in. So understand that, like I said, you're not infallible, and talk to people who understand the space. And then, more importantly, even if you do have the best systems in place, make sure you're backed up and make sure you have a fallback plan if anything should happen, because there is no absolutely secure system at all in the world right now. And we see that through some of these big corporates that get hacked, even though they have some of the best security skills available.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting time to be alive, but I think we need to emphasize that businesses can never be careful enough. South Africa is definitely, I think it's top 3 in the world in terms of cyber attacks. So
top 3 in the world, yeah.
I mean, if only we could be top 3 in the world for electricity supply, but I mean, that's another day.
Yeah, the reality of security is you're only as strong as your weakest link, and so often that breach comes through individual error. And if I had $10 for every time we've found a password that was admin or password with an @ sign, I probably wouldn't be on this call. I'd probably be on an island in the Bahamas somewhere. And that is the reality, and it goes back to what I said. Make sure you've got the best systems, make sure you've got third-party audits of those systems, and make sure you've got a contingency plan if you do get breached. And if you've got all 3 of those in place, then you can sleep a little bit better at night.
There you go, guys. You've heard it from the master himself, and I don't think there's anything I can say that's going to top that. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up, but hopefully this isn't goodbye, and I'm going to get you on this podcast again relatively soon, if you can just stop avoiding me.
Perfect.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for your time. And hopefully we'll chat soon. And remember, anyone, if you want to sign up for a free assessment, just get in touch. I'll drop all the details in the description below. And until next week, where we'll be chatting to Barry Kemp and talking all things cloud. Catch you then. Thanks, and stay cyber safe. Goodbye.